Hello, humans. My name's Carly. I guess I'm now the art hermit. Welcome to 2020, where the world is on fire. We're experiencing a global pandemic, I think the first since computers, and many of us are being forced to stay home to stop the spread of COVID-19. So if you can self-isolate, please do that, because it's the only thing that we know works right now. Yeah, so since we're all stuck at home, including myself, I figured now would be as good a time as any to try something new. Hence, this channel video. I will see what happens, but something I've been thinking about doing for a while. I figured now, since a lot of us are stuck at home, once again, and I know a lot of people have wanted to do art for a long time, and maybe now that you're stuck at home, you haven't been able to get the supplies to do it. I thought maybe it'd be helpful for me to provide a list of potential items that you might have laying around the house that you can use to make art. And then after I give you like a list of ideas, I'll do some examples of my own. And of course, if there's something that you have that you think you can use that I don't mention, give it a shot as long as it's safe, you know. I'm going to skip over supplies that are like food items or sanitary items because those are probably very useful right now, and we don't want to waste an item on art if we can use it for consumption or to stay safe and not go out places. Also, if you do have art supplies, you can just use those. You don't have to do weird things, but if you want to, it can be really fun, which I'm kind of excited to experiment with some supplies I haven't used in a while or ever, because it's just fun. And also, another disclaimer, don't expect what you make with these items to be beautiful. It's probably going to be kind of gross because you're not using traditional items and traditional art supplies. They're made to make pretty things. What we're using is not made to make pretty things, so get the expectation out of your head because it's probably going to be ugly. But that's okay. We're here to make things. We're here to not go insane in isolation. That's the point of this, to just get some form of expression out there so your mind space is a little more relaxed. So surfaces. Surfaces are anything you can put art on. Obvious go-tos for that are paper. Any kind of paper. Lined paper, dotted paper, graph paper. If you have fancy art paper, why not use that? Paper plates. You could use paper plates. Newspaper. Old books. Don't deface someone else's property, but if you have a book that you've used like as a book enough and you want to use it for something else, you don't just throw it out. Turn it into art. Turn it into art. Another form of art, because writing is a form of art. Anyways, I digress. And then with paper, it often warps with water, so if you're using a wet medium, it's a good idea to tape it down to a flat surface so it doesn't warp. Also, a thing with newspaper, the ink will probably bleed, but you can use that to your advantage. And if the paper warps anyways, you can, when it's done, wet the back and flatten it with books, and that'll usually work if you leave it overnight. Another thing, cardboard, which is like paper in that it might warp if you use water. Boxes, the backs of notebooks or sketchbooks. I've taken like the back piece of cardboard from sketchbooks many times and used that for art. It's just like a nice thick sort of surface. Canvases. If you have a canvas, use a canvas. If you have just like the cloth canvas or like a canvas bag maybe that you want to decorate, you can do that. Paint supplies will probably work best because any dry supplies will probably like wash off. Some of the paint supplies that we're going to use will probably also wash off because, like I said, they're not certified art supplies. But you can have canvas primed or unprimed, which means it has been gessoed and prepped for paint or not. The unprepped one will absorb much more stuff, so it'll take a couple layers, just heads up on that. And then like other cloths you can use, cotton, silk, burlap. You can try any cloth. Not all of them's gonna work, but that's okay. Wood. If you're like a handy person or someone in your family or at home is and you have scraps of wood laying around, wood is a great thing to do art on. And it has an extra feature where you can carve into it for some extra dimension and texture if you want, but be careful with that so you don't get splinters and stuff. Ceramics. You can paint on your favorite mug. Don't paint in them if you're going to use them to drink out of because you don't know if what you're using is safe, so don't do that. If you have like a terracotta pot that you have a plant in, you can paint on that. I've done that a couple times. Metal. I haven't done anything on metal before, but I feel like it could be cool if you have the right paint or substance to put on it. I don't think a lot sticks to it, but it's worth a shot. Glass, if you have like a mason jar you want to do something funky with, you can try putting some pigment on that. So I think most of what I'm going to suggest is kind of going to stain these items more than like a thick, opaque paint would, like we're not making acrylic paints from scratch. We're making watercolor-esque type things. And then just like stones and rocks. It could be fun to do those, And really, you can use anything. Is it always going to work? No. Quite often it probably won't work. And I'm probably going to experience some failures when I test some of these out for you. But that's okay. We're just here to have fun. Mediums. A medium is something you mix with a pigment to create a paint-like substance. Water, great medium. When you use watercolors, that's the main thing, especially if you're using like those chalk palette watercolors. You just dip your paintbrush in and wipe them on there, and then you have a paint. Oil. Oil paints, the medium for that is a type of oil. I don't remember what kind. I don't really use oil paints, but if you want to research on your own what oils you can make your own homemade oil paints with, maybe olive oil would work. I don't know. Look into that yourself because I just don't know that. Elmer's glue. Okay, Elmer's glue is a really good, like, random medium that a lot of people have around their house. I would use the one that dries clear because that'll make the pigment show through much better. Like a liquid Elmer's glue specifically. Also, don't use hot glue because you're going to get hurt. Just common sense, okay? And then Mod Podge is basically glue, so that works. And then like a matte or gloss medium if you're fancy and have those sort of art supplies laying around. Next. Pigments. Okay, pigments are fun. Pigments are the thing in paint that gives it the color. They usually start out in a powdered form, but I think they can start out in liquids too. I'm not sure. Fact check me. I don't know. If you have paint, obviously just use paint. Or again, if you want to try something new. That's what this is for. If you have like a house paint laying around, like you painted a room a fun color or even like a neutral color and you can just use that as paint, you could probably mix that with some of these things. Like, get experimental. We're having fun. So pigments that aren't obvious art supplies. Ashes. If you burn a lot of incense or you have a fire pit or you're low-key a witch and have ashes from burning spell papers and herbs, you can collect those and rub them on a paper. You can use them dry like that. Or you can maybe mix them with a little water or a little Elmer's glue and there you have a paint. I haven't tried that, but I'm thinking it works. Let me know if you try it and it works. I might give it a try for you guys. Let's find out. Be careful with fire if you're making your ashes like for this specifically. Don't be dumb. Ashes, I imagine, would make like a gray to black scale of color, so that could be cool. Dirt. I did a whole project where I just slathered dirt on a paper to make a really creepy figure. It turned out neat. Be careful with dirt, because if there's sand in it, the grit could cut up your hands, so just careful with that. But dirt makes like a range of browns to reds to blacks, depending on your region and what kind of dirt you have access to. Charcoal. So there are like charcoal discs you can scrape a bit off of, or if you're like me and you bought charcoal to whiten your teeth, only to find out that you're inconsistent and it hasn't worked yet, you can just use that, add a little water to it, and you have perfect like ink black. It's so inky. A+. Sidewalk chalk. I haven't tried this, but I imagine it works because sidewalk chalk is similar to chalk pastels. You probably want to use a darker surface like cardboard or like a black paper or something. And then you can give this a try because it works with chalk pastels, so maybe it works with these. Let me know. I don't have chalk to try it. But you can take your paintbrush, dip it in a little water, wipe it on the chalk pastel or the sidewalk chalk, and then brush it on the paper and see if you get like a paint pigment situation there. And then something that a lot of you I'm sure have is makeup. I don't really wear makeup, but I'm including nail polish in this because I have 2 nail polishes. One is kind of peeling away here. I just have eyeliner and like a couple lipsticks, but you can, if you have a lot of makeup, you can just paint the paper like you paint your face. And voila, art. Maybe don't use the same brushes you would use for your face though, because that just doesn't sound sanitary. Okay, and here are some things that are like technically food things, but you can use them in a way to where you're not wasting them. So tea. I would recommend in this time to use tea like the leftovers you have after you've already made a cup of tea. So you're not just throwing it out. You can use the leaves that are left soak them in water, gather like a bunch of them after you've had several cups of tea, put them all together, soak them in water, get some of that pigment that way. Same with coffee. If you've used coffee to drink already, you can take those grounds, put them aside in a glass of water, you can keep them in the filter, and just let it soak to get the richness of that pigment. And both of those will give you some like browns. Coffee will probably give you a richer brown, and then tea, depending on the tea, can give you some reds with a rooibos probably, some yellows with a green or golden tea or jasmine, all that range. And then if you have butterfly pea flower, that's really fun because it makes a blue sort of water. And then if you add citrus, it'll make purple. Turmeric. Again, I mean, maybe don't use turmeric now if you use it a lot in your food, but if you have a little that you can spare, it makes a nice yellow when you put it in water. Beet juice. I don't know why anyone would save their beet juice for consumption. Maybe you can use it for soup, but if you're not using it to eat, you can use it as a pigment. It makes a good like pink to red range. And I'm saying beet like the root, not meat like animals. Beets, plant, beet. And then miscellaneous tools. It's the last section. I know it's already kind of long. I'm going to do the art in a different video because this is just a lot of me talking. Paintbrushes, if you have them, use them. Sponges, kitchen sponges, makeup sponges, art sponges, if you have them, use them. It's a nice little texture. Paint rollers, if you have like a little one, that would probably work. An old toothbrush gives a good scratchy texture, and you can flick it to make specks. Sticks, again, a scratchy texture. You can use like a pen, dip it in ink, and dip it in the pigment, and you're good to go. Bowls, cups, plates, rulers, and anything with a straight edge you can use to make geometric shapes. And string or dental floss can give a really cool, like, you can have control with it to make something very specific, or you can just let it do its thing, and then you have a cool, like, stringy texture. And then salt is one of my favorite things to use. Maybe don't use it if you're rationing salt, but if you put it in, like, a little bit of a wet watercolor, it disperses the pigment, and you get a speckled effect. So those are all the things I have come up with. If you have anything else that you've thought of, let us know. Put it in the comments, whatever. I guess I'm going to go try some of these things, and that'll be the next sort of video. So good luck, guys. Stay safe. Keep self-isolating so we don't spread COVID, and good luck.